We have to understand how to more effectively swing our arms in order to run faster. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at Usain Bolt and really some of the main things that he does within his arm swing in order to run faster. And the main thing that we want to be able to see and really be able to implement is having plenty of range of motion within our arms when we're sprinting. So what stands out when we're watching him, we can even start from when he first starts, is he gets plenty of rise within that back shoulder and plenty of action forward within that front elbow. And what that does is it translates to being able to increase the range of motion within the legs, as well as being able to optimize force production into the ground. We all know that force production is critical when it comes to sprinting, but what we don't do is utilize our arms in order to help us in generating more force. So when our arms are coming through here and we're creating this pullback action, it allows our body to be able to react and respond positively. It's almost similar to when you see like a cheetah run. This is the main thing that actually brought me to make this video. They talk about how the reason that cheetahs are able to run so fast is because as they're running and as they're cutting, their tail is actually used as a way to be able to balance and control the body. And that's very similar to us with our hips and where our pelvis needs to be, but it's also similar to what our arms are doing and how we're able to utilize our arms in order to more effectively generate more force in the ground. And the way we do that is because we're able to be more balanced. Somebody that's not balanced, doesn't have good control, is simply not generating very much force in the ground. So we see with Usain Bolt is it's very smooth, it's very rhythmic, but it's also very forceful with how he's generating force. And based off of how the limbs are moving, right? So we can see how, let's say the upper body here is striking the ground. He's utilizing that pull forward with his right arm and the pull back within the left arm to be able to stabilize as he is striking the ground with that right foot and being able to best absorb that position. So now as that right foot hits the ground, he's able to pull back with that left arm and not waste too much time with the hips going off to the side. So if he wasn't utilizing his arm swing here, if he wasn't pulling back with his arm there, what would happen is his hip would have to go all the way over to the side in order to stabilize that position. That's why you can't run nearly as fast with your arms locked in place, with your arms not moving very much, or if you don't use your arms at all. You have to be utilizing your arms primarily because of the balance and control that it creates within the body. And what that does is it allows you to be able to generate more force when striking the ground. So again, we see the same type of thing here. So what stands out here is he's a little bit more on the outside part of his foot when he lands on the left side. He's a little bit more turned out. His weight is a little bit more right over his entire hip. So what do we see? We see more action the other way with his right arm. So he's pulling more out to the side with the right arm, and therefore he's able to better stabilize the position where his foot is right underneath the hip. Or then we'll go back to the right side. Again, we see a similar situation. Now he's starting to give a little bit more at the top speed. His hip's a little bit more inside of the foot, and so therefore he could pull a little bit more straight back and generate more of that horizontal force with the right foot. And I've realized that as well. Like typically we have one foot that ends up being a little bit more of a horizontal, really good pulling foot. And then we have another foot that ends up being a lot more of that vertical foot where we're striking straight down into the ground a lot more. And so we have to be able to stabilize that. Now, to the best of our ability, we want to be coordinated. We want to be able to have similarities between one side and the other. We don't want to make it so we have, let's say, your right side doing the same, right? We can't have the right arm going straight back and the left arm going straight back. And also similarly with the legs, that wouldn't end up being biomechanically the most efficient way to be able to generate the most amount of force and therefore run as fast. We have to have some degree of rotation. The rotational plane, the transverse plane ends up being the most important plane when it comes to running fast. And what we're seeing here is we're seeing Usain Bolt able to utilize that rotational plane by pulling out a little bit more within his arm. And everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of people know that he had scoliosis for a long period of time. So, and that creates a whole nother set of balance, stability type of things that you need to be able to work on and understand within your body. It's hard to be able to really coach something like that. You really have to be able to just feel it out and understand it. You could definitely give feedback as a coach, but that's something that from an athlete perspective, you have to be able to best utilize. But again, we can see as that left foot hits the ground, he's going a little bit more on the outside part with this right leg. And therefore, when he pushes forward, he's pushing a little bit more straight forward with this left side. And therefore, he drives this right arm straight up and through. So notice how he's a little bit more wide here, a lot of separation right there. And then as he pushes off, he utilizes that to be able to bring both of them in and then be able to really maximize distance coming forward and again be able to create great amount of balance. Now we'll look again on the left side here and how that left arm is going a little bit more straight back, not as much separation here between the two sides. He's a lot more on the inside part of the foot. He is slightly turned out with his foot, but he's a lot more controlled and balanced on the inside part of the foot here. So then as he's pulling back, while he's still going inwards here and also still going slightly out to the side, we talk about how that hand wants to be outside of the elbow, but he's not having to get as much range there because he's a little bit more controlled, is a little bit more stable through this side. So then when he pulls back, he doesn't have as much action to be able to go through. So everybody's going to be a little bit different in how they end up generating force. We can see too, like on his right side, he has a lot more bend in his spine. So his body's really utilizing that bend here to be able to generate more hip flexion out of that opposite side. So if you don't have good hip flexion out of a certain area, what ends up happening is you end up bending to the opposite side, right? So if you don't have good, in this case, again, he probably doesn't have great natural left hip flexion, right? Doesn't maybe have a lot of stability or a lot of strength within that area. So he naturally ends up bending a little bit more over to the side there. Or we can see on this one, see how he doesn't have to bend as much. He probably has a lot better just natural hip flexion there, which makes it so that he doesn't have to bend and would also make it so he has a little bit more natural extension out of the shoulder within that left side as well. If you don't have to bend as much, that's another common compensation when it comes to upper body, is if you need to bend, you're going to have to bend to be able to generate more extension out of that same side, right? Ipsilateral there. So if you lack shoulder extension, and that could also be the reason why he's bending over, he's lacking shoulder extension on the right side. Again, scoliosis comes into play. There's a lot of things that come into play here. And, this should just give you an idea of how in-depth that we're trying to look into it. And people could go all day and talk about how you don't need to look so in-depth into all these different things. And for me, I do. And the reason I do is because I am looking to train every single type of athlete, and really the younger type of athletes are the most important athletes that I really like to be able to train and really be able to connect with, because I think there's a very underserved community. I think there's a lot of people that just think, oh yeah, I want to work with the top athletes and try to get immediately to the top. And when I was younger, I kind of bought into that same mentality, but the more I've been doing, the more I've really fallen in love with being able to connect with the youth and be able to really understand where they are and the development, just see the success. I mean, I can't explain to you the amount of happiness and joy that it really gives me and fills my heart when it's able to see, a younger athlete be able to accomplish their goals and run faster and really be able to achieve what it is that they want to achieve. All the time I see guys that run, top speeds in the treadmill, right? They had a certain top speed, 15, 16, whatever the speed is, and then progress, right? And just start to build that confidence and that self-esteem. And you can just see that start oozing out of them as they continue to see progress. But the way to be able to continue to see progress is you have to be able to address all the things that are negatively affecting progress. And so when we look at the top athletes like this, yes, we see a lot of great things, a lot of things that come together very naturally, but what we don't see are all of the thousands of athletes that wanted to be in this position and, potentially could have been in that position, but just didn't have the drive, didn't have the coaching, didn't have the people around them to really push them and give them the belief in themselves that that is actually an attainable goal. And so that's really what I love to be able to do, and something that I'm going to continue to do for the rest of my life. People want to talk about, oh yeah, you want to get to a certain point and then sell it and retire, whatever. Like, I just don't see myself doing anything other than this. I want to be able to continue to, help people in this regard when it comes to performance and athleticism, and really developing from that mental standpoint, right? It's not only going to be about the sports performance side of things, but I'm excited to be able to get into the motivational and really athletic development and mindset development as I continue to grow the business. So as always, guys, if you like the information, click that thumbs up down below, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations, you can leave those down below. We really wanted to get in depth into the arm swing and really get a good understanding of what the arm swing should be doing in order to maximize power. If you like this information and think I should go more in depth, let me know in the comments down below. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.